everyone. Welcome back. So, this is a recorded Discord discussion. It happened on Wednesday evening, and these will become more frequent, hopefully, depending on my schedule coming forward. But I plan on making them regular, so if you'd like to join, go ahead and join my Discord in the description. This is a discussion about 3i Atlas mostly, and we were also discussing a video that I had shared in the Discord. Yeah, it was very informative chat, and I enjoyed it very much. So enjoy for yourselves. I do understand that there's like a little bit of very briefly, there might be some stuff that people don't agree with, or maybe it might be about you in some way, but just know that it's not actually about you, and it's okay to have opposing views. So if you do have opposing views, all the more reason to join us next time. But for now, enjoy this discussion that we had, and hope to see you next time.
Hello, lovely people.
Howdy, and I can hear.
Yay.
You're bored one. You did it, more one. We fixed it.
So you can hear me
here,
then?
I drop it. Be able to talk too much. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
You're a bit low for me, but
Yeah, me too, I would say.
Okay.
If you could boost your audio a little bit, maybe.
let's see. That's, I think, on my end. All right.
Is that better?
I boosted my audio. That's, yeah,
Okay.
better for me.
Okay. I better reset.
Yeah, so Stephen Burns. Stefan Burns? He's an interesting dude.
Yeah, it was really hard for me to watch it, and like there was a lot of what he was saying. I was like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But then I was like, but why do you have to, like, you just like pushing it a little too far? But
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was to me it was kind of a Oumuamua turn. Like he was going pretty well. He was getting things right, and then all of a sudden, galactic consciousness. Like
yeah,
okay.
the consciousness. Oh my gosh, that part I was like, okay, you. How many times have you said this now? Like you've just repeated the same word as if it's real.
Yep. Oh, and he had to bring in frequencies. I wonder if he is into crystals.
I don't know. It reminded me a lot of like Terrence Howard.
Who? Who is this?
Terrence Howard, the
Oh, yeah,
actor.
yeah, yeah. Terrence Howard. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I could buy that. I could buy that. To me, it was very woo salesman. Like I was waiting for him to sell me something to help resonate my frequencies or attune my frequencies to the galactic consciousness. So, but no, thankfully he didn't actually do it. I'm glad to note that he is not, in fact, a PhD. He is only has a BS. So.
Well, he's I don't know when he I looked, I wanted to see what there was on YouTube, and so I just typed in 3i Atlas, and just everything that came up. I mean, I scrolled down like the whole first page that I saw, probably like 20 or so videos and shorts were just all like ridiculous.
Oh, that's great.
And
That's
when I
good to know.
started, like, when I as you scroll, it starts, playing like the it starts playing a portion of it so that you can see whether you want to watch it or whatever. When he introduced
Mhm.
himself as a geophysicist, I was like, okay, well, this might be something that's not outrageous, and then I was proven wrong.
Yeah, when he claimed himself to be a geophysicist, that's when I checked into his credentials. I was like, he PhD? No, he has uh, a BS in I guess geophysics or geology in from UC Irvine, I think. He actually does work in seismology. Apparently, he owns a business that helps with some kind of seismic reading. So he's not. It's very weird. I'm starting to see this sort of subspecies of scientist that is legitimate on one end, but is also kind of batshit on the other. So I
Yeah,
don't know how to explain it.
yeah. I mean, it's well. I mean, we know of a few examples. I mean, just watch Professor Dave, but yeah. I mean, we've seen Sabina just take this turn
Hmm.
and just
Sabina, Sabina, it hurts too because I remember when I used to watch her like a year or two ago, and yeah, she would kind of criticize the mainstream and stuff, but it felt like she gave fairly nuanced criticism at least, and like she also had videos that were like pretty good that like cover like basic physics and like, but now it's just like she's gone full Weinstein almost. And I mean, I think it was telling the way she like jumped in to defend Weinstein after that Sean Carroll thing. To me, that's like I hope that's the high watermark for this kind of stuff because Carroll like in that one appearance completely changed my view on string theory within 5 minutes. Like I was just shocked at how clear and like uh he just explained everything so clearly as to why string theory it has been thought about and like I don't know. And then Weinstein is just like whining the whole time.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I always was a little bit like curious about string theory and all that. Um, I can't say that I even know enough now about it to say one way or another, but it is interesting and it's something to look into. And like that's another thing that this Burns guy said was, it's something to look into whether, alien tech is spying on us, but it's like when it comes to the Fermi paradox, which is what Loeb and his two co-authors refer to with, their trying to back up their data or whatever. But um, they they talk about the dark forest uh, theory, I guess is what I call it. But I don't really think that, well, for one, would be the best option for them to even use as their backing. But there's just other. Do I think we're alone? No. I mean, no. That would, to me, that's impossible. That there's so many things
It
out
would be
there.
it would be highly improbable, right?
Yeah, highly improbable is what I usually say. Not impossible,
So,
but it's highly improbable.
remind me of Dark Forest. Is that the Galactic Federation hypothesis, or what is the Dark Forest again?
So, Dark Forest is that we are not, or not only are we not alone, but there's, the universe is teeming with life, but every other advanced civilization is quiet. And then obviously the unadvanced civilizations can't communicate at all, but the advanced ones are quiet because it's safer to be quiet or,
Hmm.
destroy or be destroyed type of thing.
The xenophobic hypothesis. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Got it. Okay. Um, yeah, I am something of a I'm on board with Adam Frank. I am a intelligent species pessimist because just from a technological argument, uh, I cannot see how any intelligent species is going to escape the climate crisis. And so uh, I'm I'm on the side of uh, most civilizations, if they exist, don't get past the climate crisis. Essentially, they destroy themselves. Do I believe that we are the only intelligent species to have ever existed in the galaxy? No, but I don't know if there's one that's currently um, visible or identifiable. I think there's
Yeah.
definitely life out there, but I don't know about intelligence.
Yeah, I think that any species that had surpassed us, I would assume that they either couldn't, you know, couldn't find another home to escape to in time, or they just wound up being too smart for their own good and then annihilated each other. So, watching Jurassic Park Rebirth recently, the 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 guy who studied under the original dude, he had said something like, "We aren't actually intelligent. We're not actually the top on on Earth. Earth is the top, but
Okay.
we're we're smarter than the animals and stuff." Is what he was saying, but he is saying that we're too smart for our own good, and that we're so smart we already know how to destroy ourselves.
Yeah, actually, see, I would take it a little bit uh, in a different direction. I would say that we are not smart enough to avoid destroying ourselves. Because I think that with the climate crisis issue, there is a solution there. It's that, but we are not at the, well, I think it's a mixture of two things. One, I don't think we've technologically figured it out. So in that sense, we're not smart enough. But also from a sort of sociological intelligence, we don't cooperate. And because of that lack of cooperation, even if we did have the technology to mitigate climate change, we're not all going to agree on that we need to actually use it. So, um, but
Yeah,
yeah, I hear,
yeah,
I think I get what you're saying.
yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. We, as a human race, we definitely weigh very heavily on the freedoms that we have, and I think a lot of times we just take all of what's around us for granted. And there there's one thing that I've watched recently that has made me actually like a little bit hopeful for the future. And I was watching middle school children create future like cities that are sustainable. It was really
Hmm.
amazing. It was actually at my local NASA visitor center where they have the IMAX. It was one of those
Okay.
featured things. It was really great. I honestly don't know if it's anywhere else or if you could find it anywhere else. It's I know it's not on the NASA app, but it was called Cities of the Future. So if you run into
Okay.
that movie, it's about middle schoolers who are supposed to come up with these. I think it's an annual thing actually, so it might still be going on. But every year these middle schoolers put together, their based on their region, what would be a sustainable city for us in the future. And the guy who is talking to these kids goes around to the most sustainable cities that currently exist on Earth. It's really interesting.
Okay.
But I just don't think that enough people would agree.
Yeah. The the stumbling block for me is that humanity as a whole is too much into tribalism, that there is an us versus them mentality, that we are, we have the US versus China versus Russia. and we're just not able to get over the fact that the Chinese might actually have some good ideas. The Chinese, I don't think, recognize that we have some good ideas and that we can actually collaborate to a brighter tomorrow, as it were. Um, until we can get
Well,
over that, until we can recognize that there is um, that nationalism and tribalism really needs to go away, that there is no sound or moral basis for it, then until then, I don't think we're going to see any massive change in climate change.
I mean, it's kind of crazy that we talk about collaborating to solve climate change, but we literally have hundreds of guns pointed at each other that can end the human race at any given time, right? I mean, I don't know to what extent it's true that a full-fledged nuclear exchange would cause the extinction of the human race, but I think it would certainly come close. And it's wild to me that we've essentially been in a standoff with each other. I mean, we have these, solid fuel missiles that are sitting there. They're gassed up and ready to go, and within 20 minutes, the world can end at any time. That's
Mm-hmm.
just crazy.
Yeah, it's the whole mutually assured destruction, and in terms of ending life on the Earth, I would imagine it depends on the reciprocity, like how many missiles are going to be thrown at someone, and how many missiles are going to be thrown back at somebody. So, um, I mean, if it's one or two, then I think then humanity will survive. But if it's a full on just send everything we have, then yeah, I don't see any hope for humanity's survival in that context.
I kind of wonder too, like there's an interesting in relation to this conversation, it's the idea of post-growth economics and the work, the limits to growth, which sorry to call you old, Dr. Parks, but you may have heard about that back in the day. But there's this idea, and I'm curious, maybe if you get your opinion, the panel's opinion on it is that this idea of decoupling growth from climate change and the exhaustion of resources on the planet is impossible. There's I forget who it was that said infinite growth in a finite system is an idea so absurd only an economist could believe it. But so I'll stop there because I want to get your thoughts. But
I mean, I honestly I don't know. I will say that economics is black magic to me. I do not understand finance really at all. Um, I've tried, and it just will not equate in my head for whatever reason. Um, I mean, I guess my question would be is well, actually, my question would be, are they? Is this a an argument against our ability to mitigate climate change, or for?
it's basically saying that you cannot have continued and essentially unlimited growth and simultaneously be able to reduce emissions. So the steel man of it is
Ah,
to say that increasing growth, which is kind of like the basis of our whole economic system, really everywhere, minus, I don't know, some places, but in and of itself is one to one coupled with exhaustion of the resources of the planet and climate change to the extent that only by abandoning this idea that society has to keep growing forever can we actually survive as a species. I think it comes down to like an existential argument.
oh, all right. So yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. The Because the premise there uh, is that growth is tied to fossil fuel usage. That you cannot have growth with any other energy providing mechanism. I don't I don't buy that. I think that there is a possibility of growth if we can move to some kind of renewable resource, or a much longer lasting um, non-renewable like nuclear. To me, I am a huge proponent of shifting our infrastructure from coal and natural gas to nuclear. I think I think those plants are actually shown to be far more safe than coal mines or coal producing plants, that sort of thing. Granted, the catastrophic effects of failure are much greater for a nuclear power plant. But just to summarize my point is I don't agree with the initial premise. So I
Yeah,
think you can have growth with
right.
renewable resources. So yeah.
Right, right. And I think the counterfactual to that, to build off of that, because that's what I always try to do when someone makes a claim, is okay, well, what's the counterfactual? And if you look at France, France has had GDP growth similar to UK, Germany, even the United States. I mean, less so, but
Mhm.
and that's partly the economic system, right? I think that there's also a trade-off in economics between growth and distribution of wealth, which gets more controversial. But they basically, I think it's like what, 60 or 70% of their power is from nuclear. And you can really see that there's this point where carbon emissions per capita of France are increasing in line with everyone else, and then all of a sudden they break off. And
Yeah.
I think it was the nuclearization that really led to that. The one thing that I was wondering is if that's completely accurate because the fuel comes from somewhere, right? The disposal goes somewhere. And I wonder, once you include all of those costs that aren't factored into France's carbon budget, if that changes anything. But that's a very complex question to answer. But I tend to agree with you as well. Um, what do you think about the idea of thing like sequestration as a technology? I mean, obviously, it's like the math. I think the energy problem is still there, but I've sometimes wondered if like, okay, if we could nuclearize and basically move to an energy economy of renewables plus nuclear with maybe 20% natural gas or something, just as a like ballpark. Could we then eventually start removing the carbon from the atmosphere in a way that would actually be a carbon sink? I don't know if that's like a pipe dream or not. My dad, a lot of people I've talked to, my dad does kind of been like, yeah, no, the math on the energy just doesn't work. But
Yeah, I don't when people start talking about carbon removal, to me that's basically punting. I mean, I think that's a very valid or very useful technology to develop, but I don't think it's going to have large scale applications, or at least nothing I've seen could be scalable to the point of removing the amount of carbon that we need in order to mitigate climate change. If we're going to mitigate climate change, it has to come from the emission source. But I did want to, because Kat, this is we're supposed to be talking about orbits and Three Eye Atlas, and I definitely want to talk about that video. Kat, well, how are we on? I know you're recording this, or what is the format for tonight?
Yes, so I'm recording on OBS. Um,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna go in later and edit out the bit in the beginning that's just me messing around on my computer trying to figure everything out. And just put like an intro and an exit. I'm trying to keep this as clean as possible because I had that whole mess up with Mac last time where my audio was all messed up, but this time it's fine. So I'm planning on just posting this as it is, just with adding the intro and outro.
Okay. So, do you want me to just give my thoughts on Three Eye Atlas, or
So I do have, I could hold on.
ah,
Can you see me?
I see a dark screen. I can see that you're trying to
Oh,
stream something. Ah, there we go.
I have the little
Hey,
flap
Kat.
on my computer. So my stream is using my external camera, but this is
Okay.
going to be using my computer camera, and it's weird. I don't like this view at all. But if you can see over here,
Hmm.
I took notes. Um, so these are the facts on this side, which you can't actually see on this view. Um,
Yeah.
but then their opposing views over here, and then I have like questions and other things. So the questions, um, I think one of them I already mentioned. It's probably this one over here. Um, but so first I'll just tell you the facts that I wrote down, which was that the teardrop shape, that indicates a comet.
Hmm.
So these are all the facts that I just took straight from NASA. These aren't like, oh,
Yeah.
I thought of these. I'm not taking credit for this at all. Um, so the thing that then goes, I guess, against what they're proposing was the so I you know what? Hold on. Let me just go check. When did they publish that? It was in July. They published it July 17th.
Talking about the Hibbard paper?
That yeah,
Nope, that's
Hibbard,
not the one.
Hibbard,
Where is it?
Crowell, and
Yeah, July
Loeb.
17th.
Yeah. So they published that July 17th. Um, I can't actually remember, like, off the top of my head where we were in our orbit at that time, but it just didn't make sense to me looking at its trajectory, how they would gather as much information as they think that they could from the opposite side of the sun.
Oh, yeah. So I think it's been about a week or so since I read this, and really, I skim the stuff when it comes down to the direct mission to intercept 3I Atlas, because to me that is um, essentially that's a uh, dynamicist exercise. Like it's fun. I mean, it's an interesting exercise to go through, but considering the speed at which Atlas is moving, I think the idea of having something actually going to Atlas is not exactly feasible. In terms of what I got uh, from going behind the sun is that I think there is an expectation that the way that they're going to validate the alien hypothesis is that they're going to expect the aliens to actually hit the brakes uh, when they're on the opposite side of the sun, so they could redirect towards the Earth. I think that was the main
Yeah,
point behind that.
I again, that just like when I some people take my honesty as like um me just like being mean or whatever. But
Okay.
if I just don't think something sounds logically like correct or it just doesn't make any sense, I will just say it. And this doesn't make sense. Why
It,
why wouldn't they just do that from the beginning if they were going to do that and just come, why would they wait till they're at the sun and then turn?
that would be the reason for that is it's coming back to me, um, and I don't remember the specifics, but at that point you have that is the point at which oh man I need to look into specifics, but believe the argument is it is easier to change direction from a gravitational assist standpoint when you're closest to the sun, or basically on the opposite side of the sun, which I think is where perihelion is. So if you
Yeah.
want to change the directory, then you want to be as close to the sun and use its gravity to do so. So I think that's the argument that they're trying to make.
Yeah. But so when something like were to slingshot around the sun, like we know, well, I mean, we can observe how fast it's going right now, but just looking at previous ones, right?
Mhm.
Oumuamua came in at a very strange angle, and it was going so fast that the sun just kind of like slightly grabbed hold and then flung it the other way. But
Mhm.
it didn't, it couldn't slingshot around. It was going way too fast. And then from what I saw of Tuai Borisov, that one also came in at a very strange angle. I think from like 45 degrees above, and then also the sun kind of turned it a little bit. But
Yeah.
I mean, we've.
So,
I
yeah.
think it's. I had said previously that it just. There could be, something out there, and in the far future we wind up finding it. But just doing this for him anyway, because he is so highly educated and he is looked at as somebody who, is an educator. Well, because he is actually an educator, but
Hmm.
on top of that, like, he has that prestige in his name, Harvard professor. But
Mhm.
it just, like, at what point do we just, say, oh, this is another boy that cried wolf?
Yeah, I mean, so Avilob could be a conversation in and upon itself. And the thing that I've noticed with this discussion is that, and I've been trying to correct myself on it, is that this paper was not written by Avilob. This paper was written by Hibbert, um, Adam Hibbert, and what he did, which is a common practice in academia, is if you want to give your paper more weight, you find a senior scientists in that field, and then tack them on as the last author. As you were saying, because he does have this sort of gravitas in the field, if he puts Avi Loeb's name on it, then people are going to sit up and notice. And nowadays, people are going to sit up and notice because Loeb is starting to develop a reputation of being a quack, basically being just completely in love with aliens that he cannot separate that from the data itself. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
um,
I've never been I don't know. I've never been like a full on pessimist when it comes to life out there. To what extent, I don't know. It would be pretty cool if we could find like a Dyson sphere or something, but do I think it would happen? No. So, and I guess in that way, I'm just kind of like a realist. Like, okay, it's
so oh, good. Sorry.
sorry. To me, it's just like it's implausible if there's not life out there. But even if something like that did exist in our current generation, that's just not. I don't know. It's just too much for us, I guess, or
Okay.
just too far away. But I mean, even outside of the paper, most of the videos that I saw were either clips made into shorts of just him, talking about it on, news sources or on, like, those talk shows, the YouTube talk shows.
Hmm.
But the thing that really got me was in the introduction. It just says that, uh, this paper is contingent on a remarkable but testable hypothesis.
Yeah.
But then, like, they gave their two reasons, and so I just like I wrote those down. I was like, okay, I'll look into that. But then it said like uh, the second to last. Yeah, it was the second to last paragraph before that first table. It said basically that like the dark forest of the Fermi paradox is why uh, I said, okay, more likely.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, I had I have so many problems with this entire thing that had slipped down to down a few rungs. But yes, I also have a significant problem with the fact that he seems to immediately be going to aliens are bad, aliens are hostile. So I'm like, what evidence do you have to drive that? There,
well,
there is. Yeah, go ahead.
when I was reading, because at first I was like, okay, like I've read all the different things of the Fermi paradox, but I'd never actually heard it called dark forest until this, and so that's why I looked it up. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I
Mm.
have heard of this one, but it's like that. It just seems like our view on extraterrestrial life is that what would like the worst of humanity do? That's what I assume they would do. And
Yep.
like if a civilization has advanced itself so much that it could actually reach us, why why is it your immediate thought that they would be hostile?
Precisely. You know, at the risk of being, I will just fully admit I am an Adam Frank fanboy. Um, and what is interesting, what I find to be, again, there's so many places to start with this. So, Adam Frank was the first person to, his group at Rochester was the first person to actually get government funding for a project to look for what is now known as technosignatures. So biosignatures are, uh, if you're not familiar, biosignatures are elements within the atmospheres of planets which would be almost exclusively biological. So, for example,
Yeah.
if you see a whole bunch of oxygen in the atmosphere of a planet, there's really no way to get that without having life. And so then there are these technological signatures, like you're talking about with Dyson spheres. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so pessimistic about this, is that one of the biggest signatures for a Dyson sphere is going to be IR excess. There's going to be too much infrared radiation to be explained from an astrophysical standpoint for a star.
Yeah.
We've done extensive infrared surveys. We've really never seen that. So the chances that that there are Dyson sphere out there are very, very small, simply based on what we have already done. And so what Frank's group is attempting to do is to put together observing programs that are specifically tailored to look for that signature. Um,
Oh,
but the
that's really
reason
interesting.
why, yeah, but the reason why I bring this up is that Frank is very much against trying to understand aliens from a psychological or sociological standpoint because we have a data set of one, and that is us. And so, from a scientific standpoint, there is no basis for us to make any claims as to what their motivations would be. And yeah, why they immediately go to they're going to want to kill us, I don't know. And
Is
I
that
find that
maybe
to be telling.
is that maybe related to what we said earlier, Dr. Parks, in that if we come from this nationalistic martial culture of pointing nukes at each other all the time, are we maybe projecting our sort of like human ideology onto a species that, by definition, if they made it off their planet, would have had to have overcome that and maybe don't have the same sort of aggressive martial view that we tend to? I don't know. I wonder if that's at play.
So, I mean, in my mind, there are two pretty obvious choices when it comes to interstellar space. You can go the Star Trek approach in terms of Earth, in that somehow Earth has become something of a utopia, in that everyone has now decided to abandon tribalism, and we are now shiny, happy people. We have this federation of planets, and we go out and we look to explore and bring light to the universe and all that kind of happy stuff. Or Another way to unify the planet is for one entity to essentially conquer slash eradicate everyone else. So effectively, your two options are take multiple tribes and combine them willingly into one tribe, or one tribe annihilates all of the other tribes. So in the first case, yeah, I would find it highly irrational, highly unlikely that they would come here to do violence or do something nefarious. On the other hand, what you're kind of talking about is if you have a conquering species, then yeah, I could see them taking that sort of view of, well, we conquered our own planet. Look at all the progress we've made. Why don't we take that model and apply it to the galaxy? If we can conquer everyone else, imagine what we could do with all those resources. So, but again, who knows? I mean, we we're assuming that um, alien life is going to evolve from a psychological or sociological standpoint in any way similar to humanity. I mean, I guess there is an argument for that if you're talking about that uh, sociology or our motivations are born from natural selection processes, but I don't know. It's far too speculative, in my opinion.
With regards to like just taking it back as well to this idea of the, I've heard it mentioned, and I have to admit, I just saw it in the Kyrgyzats video or however you say it. To my understanding isn't that sophisticated, admittedly, but this idea of like the great filter, and we've talked about like climate change or this like this fact that when you industrialize a society, you may destroy your planet before you can transcend of being a single planet species. And I wonder if it's possible as well beyond that because a certain view is that all of the other we've had countless alien species evolve and die on their planets or die in their solar system as it were.
Yeah.
But another possibility I think is intriguing is that we are the first one for whatever reason, just because
Hmm.
of the time scale of the universe and the level of how long it takes for abiogenesis to occur, how long it takes for planets to form, all of the things that have to happen to get to this point, that
Yep.
we very well could be the first or one of the first species to even be at the level of development that we're at now.
Yeah. I That's yes. That is another consideration that I think has some promise. The other sort of tied to that is my view or my current sort of worldview on this is that there were civilizations in the past, but they've destroyed themselves, and now currently we are leading the pack. Currently, we are the most intelligent species, most technologically advanced species, or at least one of very, very few moving forward.
What?
Um, what was I? I was going to say
Yeah, you
something
can just.
in relation to that. Oh, the other the other factor to consider with this is that unless the aliens have figured out that general relativity is can be circumvented or is inaccurate, or if there's some way to actually overcome the special relativity postulate of the speed of light is the ultimate speed limit, then the notion that we would be visited by aliens that are organic doesn't really make a lot of sense. Again, I'm placing some psychology into this, but more likely than not, because again, if we're only going to look at a data point of one, the first thing that's going to be alien to us is going to be a probe. It's going to be a robotic probe, like Perseverance on Mars. The Martians are, if there are Martians on Mars, their first experience with us are basically landers and rovers wandering around. So there is another possibility that I've seen floated, which is a probe comes in, it's controlled by some kind of AI that has certain mission parameters. Like, I am going to study, I am here to study the whatever characteristics of this solar system. But part of my mission is to propagate myself. is to find a place to gather resources, create more other vehicles that can then get launched into other places. And in that way, the aliens could be destructive because they simply just don't care. They don't see us as something that is worthy of having around. They just have a certain, the robots have a certain mission that they have to accomplish. And in order to do that, we get eradicated. That's another idea that I've
Interesting.
heard put forward. So,
And that reminds me of an Ender's Game, actually. Spoiler alert. Sorry, but I assume we have all read or heard of it. But oh hey, Shrubel, how's it going? Um, in Ender's Game, there's this idea that's similar, which is that you have this advanced alien species that's sort of like a hive mind collective, and
mhm.
so when they encounter Earth, they almost wipe out the planet or a good chunk of the planet with an exploratory ship, not because they have a this idea of us being, something that needs to be eradicated, we're a threat to them, but because they don't understand us as an intelligent species, because their model of intelligence is a hive mind. And so, because they don't detect that sort of collective intelligence, they assume that we're just, like any other animal that they've encountered in their travels. And we are the first intelligent species that they've encountered, and they don't recognize us as intelligent, which also maybe gets to what you're saying here, right? Where it's like there could be there's an assumption, like like an Independence Day or something, that there's an intentionality to the destruction, but there may not be.
Yeah.
And there's
The, taking a step back, and this is the main point to me that sort of raises my academic hackles, is that in this paper and in the video that Kat uh, showed by Stefan Burns or Stephen Burns, whatever, they a lot of subjective terms are being used. This orbit is unusual. It's going to get close to Mars, so forth and so on. Um, there is no basis for those terms. So we have an entire data set of three. We only know of three interstellar objects that have come into our come into our solar system. The one thing that I will say with the that I will agree with in the Hibbard paper is the probability of an interstellar object being in line with the ecliptic is very, very low. However, the probability of a interstellar object coming in at any trajectory, any particular trajectory, is also very, very low. Because the initial assumption, which could be wrong, but the initial assumption is that there is no preferential direction. So these interstellar objects are coming in, can come in from all angles. And so this could just very well be a very remarkable coincidence that this thing is coming in uh, at that trajectory. Now, in terms of how close these things are getting, let me see if I can bring it in. There was a paper by um, uh, Jewett et al., and this was submitted to the archive on the 4th of August. This is talking about the Hubble images that were taken, and they look at it. Is it this paper? Darn it. Maybe it's not. Anyway, somewhere I was looking at something and it was showing me just how close these things are going to get to Mars. The closest it's going to get is 0.18 or 0.18 AU. So it's going to get as close to Mars as halfway to Mercury's orbit. I don't know about you, but that's not exactly my definition of close. It's
yeah,
going to
me
get a
neither.
little closer to Jupiter, but saying that these things are close is okay. And having that mean something, is highly irresponsible to make those sorts of claims. It
And
just
do you think that
bugs me.
that's deliberate, and they're just relying on the fact that if they say something, the public isn't going to know what AU be? Like, I mean, we all know we should have learned in middle school or high school or whatever what an AU is, but I feel like we still don't really understand it. Like the average person,
Hmm.
if you ask them, might be able to work through an explanation, but if I say point 0.1 AU to someone on the street, they have no idea what that means, right? And it even sounds like a kind of small number. So I
Yep.
wonder, do you feel like it's a good faith, just like they want to believe this and they're just thinking in this way that is like making them biased, or is it a deliberate deception to trick the public?
So that's an excellent question. And um, is it a good faith argument? The answer to that is no. And what's funny is that we've seen this in flat Earth. We've seen this in other conspiracy theories. So things like pareidolia, where you look at something and it has the resemblance of something that you find to be intriguing, so therefore you then immediately jump to it has to be this or is probably this, despite the fact that there is no evidence to actually support that. There is no hard evidence to support that. And so, and then, yeah, they will use things. And so it's a sort of like a weird sort of cherry picking of, and it's, and not under, and doing so in a way that illustrates some kind of lack of understanding. So in this case, I think you're dead on, is that I don't think um, these people realize what close means. So, for example, in that video, that Burns video, if you look at his schematic that he puts up, it's some kind of simulation. If you look at it, then yes, the object is close to Mars. Like on the scale of the image, it does look like it gets very, very close to Mars. But people don't understand that space is vast. Like even the solar system, space is incredibly vast. And so that small distance isn't actually all that small when you come down to the nuts and bolts of it. But again, they can make this claim because they have already decided this is an alien. So, or is most
Right.
likely an alien.
Yeah.
So,
It becomes in the same way that, and it going back to your example with flat Earth or whoever, the conclusion is already set, and then the evidence has to be made to fit that conclusion. Whereas in science, that's a very perverse way of approaching things.
oh
And
yeah,
for the purposes of the discussion, just to clarify for anyone that might be listening, how long would it take like a spacecraft to travel that distance? Like if you were to the closest approach distance of the comet to Mars, for example, how long would it take to travel that distance with the fastest probe that we've created?
that oh, so it gets a little bit weird when in this because um, when we talk about moving through the solar system, you really, unless you have an unlimited amount of fuel, you really have to use gravity as a way to create trajectories or to modify trajectories. So, so for example, where I'm going with this is that at closest approach, Mars and Earth are would be about half an AU separated. Given our current level of technology, it would take months, many months to get there. So let's say off top, just complete ballpark, 6 months. So for in the terms of the current trajectory of Atlas and Mars, at closest approach, I'd say it would still take months to get there, or definitely weeks. It's not one of these things where it's so close they can just drop off a probe and be like, "See ya,"
Right.
or drop it off and then have it do its thing and then pop back up and it catch it and go. Like, no, it it does not. I don't believe it works that way. So,
And in comparison, if I recall correctly, it took us like what, 3 days to get to the moon? 3 days each way,
um,
or
3 days basically straight. So the Apollo mission, because they were so much on a time constraint, is that they went as directly as possible. With Artemis, we don't seem to care as much, and so we took the basically long way around. So with Artemis, I think it took 2 weeks. But if you just want to get there, then
but if we
three
put that
days.
in perspective, I mean, like, we're talking like you would say, okay, the moon is close to Earth, but it's not that close, really. And we're talking about an order of magnitude greater distance than that. So for them to say, oh, it's coming
At
so
least.
close to Mars, I mean, from point 1 AU, Mars would still just appear as like another star, right? Or
Yeah,
would it like I mean, if your goal was to approach, like hypothetically, if you're an alien probe and you're trying to observe the solar system, it doesn't seem to me that the behavior of this object matches that at all.
it would. If I were designing this as a way to study the objects in the solar system, this is not how I would design it. I do not. But again, who knows? Aliens. You can use that. You can use that term to get yourself in and out of any kind of argument. Um, you know, they're aliens, so we don't know what their priorities are. We don't know what they're actually studying. So that's why they chose that closest that sort of trajectory. Or as Loeb suggests in this article, is that when Atlas gets to perihelion, it's actually going to alter its trajectory so that it moves either closer to Mars or gets closer to Earth. Um, Again, it's very, very speculative. And so I don't, but yeah, if I were just to throw a rock into a solar system or throw a probe into the solar system, and I wanted to do closest approach, this is not how I would do it. I would do it the same way we did with Voyager.
Right,
Voyager
right.
Voyager
Yeah.
1 went through 4 planets, or no, 2 planets, and then Voyager 2 went through 4 planets. And close, like not AU, we're talking hundreds of thousands of kilometers that went by on these worlds. So if we can do that with 1970s technology, I yeah, it again speculative.
Right, but ultimately it's speculation against speculation, right? The difference is, it would seem to me that you're approaching it from a neutral scientific perspective where the data supports the conclusion, whereas they're supporting going from a sort of, I don't know, ideological perspective. I don't know exactly how to characterize it, but
Mm-hmm.
where the conclusion is supported by the data, as it were. Like the conclusion has already been made, therefore, how do I make the data fit the conclusion? Whereas, yeah, immediately when we were talking about it, I was thinking about Voyager as well, right? Like, why would it just pass through at this extreme angle so quickly and only zero point 0.1 AU from, a planet that they would be able to tell as well isn't all that interesting? I mean, surely they would go to
Yeah,
Venus or Earth first, right?
you would think. But again, that gets into the speculation as to what is the mission parameters? What is the mission priorities? What are they actually looking for? Because if maybe they really like rust, maybe they really like iron oxide for some unknown reason, and so the choice planet for that would be Mars. But where was I going? So the thing that drives me crazy about this is that this is fundamentally the same process or the same way to go about this as biblical flat earthers and young earth creationists. It is antithetical to science. As I've gone on at length on some of my videos, is that from a scientific standpoint, we are driven by data. Granted, we are humans, so therefore we do have biases that we can't get rid of. But from a theoretical standpoint, we should always be moving towards data driven, evidence driven analysis. We need to not move from a worldview to the data. We cannot hold on to a worldview like God did it, so therefore and God did it in 6 days, so therefore we have to manipulate the data in order to make that work. And that's what I'm seeing here, is that they
Right.
are essentially saying aliens, and then they are cherry picking their data or cherry picking the aspects of this object to fit that narrative, and then ignoring everything else.
Yeah, it is almost like a religious mentality, right? Where it's very similar to how creationists approach things. And I know we had this conversation as well when we were talking on, when we were talking with Joe Hanvey a while back. But um, the the idea that we're mixing our tools here, right? Like I don't think that science is a very good tool for discerning ethics per se.
Correct.
And I also don't think religion is a very good tool for discerning reality per se. And
Correct.
it's a matter of I think you said it this way, right? It's like if you're going to, ask us why do we exist as intelligent humans, then you might reach to, in your case as a Christian, the Bible. To someone else, it might be another text. But if you're going to ask why is the composition of I don't know, this mineral composed of 30% iron, 20, you don't reach to the Bible for that, right? So
Yeah.
it's like tool for the job kind of thing.
Well, even more sort of pointed to this is you can ask the question of just how did or why are we here? Why is humanity, why does it exist? That could be answered one of two ways. The one way is sort of this intentionality to it, this rash or this moral sort of argument of why is it that we were created in the first place? Is it simply random, or is there some sort of divine providence to it? But that's religion. That's religion and philosophy. The the scientific point of view is why we are here is because carbon, hydrogen, these other types of atoms got together in a tide pool or whatever, bonded together through these chemical processes, and then through these biological processes evolved to us today. That is all science can say. As to whether or not it's a fluke, whether or not it's random or God or what have you, that is philosophy. Science can say nothing about that.
Yeah, well said.
So, Shubil, I don't know where you are. Um,
Well, no, I clicked into Jabber, and all of a sudden I see this ketchup. I don't know what the hell's going on.
I see you're back to your old mic too.
Well,
You see it.
I'm on a Bluetooth hands-free. I'm sorry about that. Is it
No,
bad? Just
it's
not.
it, it, it's not great. It's not great. You know where you are, Shubo, is you're careening through the plane of the ecliptic in an interstellar trajectory.
Now, hear me now.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
can
better.
hear you. So, kind
I
of moving. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. I've been listening only for about 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so. And there's one point that was kind of nagging that I just can't let go because I have so little to contribute. But it was that whole thing about what you just said about it takes 2 or 3 days or 4 days to get to the moon. And it doesn't. It could take 9 or 10 hours if you're so inclined, isn't it? That
Yeah,
it was the optimal speed to pass through the Lagrange point crawling so that to be captured in orbit. So to pass 230,000 miles, at orbital, at escape velocity, that's 10 hours. But if you want to be captured in lunar orbit, you better not be doing 230,000 miles when you're sneaking up on it. Isn't that
yeah.
so?
So the thing I was saying before is that if I was ignoring that you had infinite fuel or an extremely large amount of fuel, if you have a lot of fuel, then yes, you can go, you can make a beeline, you can go, if you have good brakes, like if you have a lot of fuel to basically shoot towards the object to slow you down, then yeah, I think that you can do it on paper. It's basically just
Well,
distance
yeah, but
over time.
Yeah, we've had probes that have passed the lunar distance in 10 hours. They weren't
Yeah,
going to the moon.
yeah.
So
So
it was just a comment. It was like it took 4 days to get to the moon. No, that was an optimal speed.
yeah, and that was rushing it. Um, yeah, exactly. If you want to, because of, like I said, fuel considerations, because of ultimately, as you were saying, um, speed considerations once you get to the planet, then going straight at it is really not a good option. Not a great option. So, yeah, could Atlas, if this is an alien spacecraft, could they send out a probe in a matter of days to Mars? I would have to do the math, but again, it's velocity over time, or it's distance over time,
Now,
depending on how fast the thing is going.
now again, I've only clicked in here, like I said, 15, 20 minutes ago. The
Yeah.
whole concept or idea that Oumuamua and this Atlas are spacecraft, and that Avery Loeb, whatever the name is, that's
Yeah.
just so yeah, that is just so batshit. I mean, maybe it's a non-zero number. Yeah, just like deep space vacuum pressure, which is like to the E minus 17. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a non-zero number.
So, I mean, again, it is, as I related it to Young Earth creationists, is that Avi Loeb, his worldview is that alien life exists. That is his worldview. And so he is looking for evidence to support his worldview. That is not scientific. That is anathema to science. That is basically anti-scientific. You, that is not how we should be doing things. And so I was mentioning before that one of the things that that the Hibbard paper and that the Burns video talks about is how coincidental it is that uh, Atlas is in line with the ecliptic. I'm like, yes and no. We have a data set of three. We have no idea what the
I yeah,
odds are for these
I
to
had
come
heard
in.
I,
So,
I heard that part of the discussion, and then my only question to that is, how aligned is our ecliptic with the galaxy disk?
oh, I used to know this number, 15, 20 degrees.
So something
Uh,
coming in, on our ecliptic isn't that far out of the galaxy disk.
no, it's not. It's
So it's
not.
a
And
nothing. It's a
well, I
nothing.
mean, and the other thing is, it depends on where this thing is actually coming from. If you look at the solar neighborhood, then it's fairly evenly distributed. Like if you look at the 25 closest stars to us, or excuse me, if you look at the stars within 25 parsecs or 75 light years, the distribution is roughly homogeneous. So again, that is where we get this assumption that any interstellar objects that are going to come in are going to come in at any particular angle. There will be no preferential angle.
Yeah,
So
like sand in a windstorm.
yeah, so this argument of it's so it's so unlikely that we would find this. You can make that same argument for Oumuamua. It is so
And
unlikely that it would come in at that particular angle.
I give that Avi Loeb about the same credence I give Kent Hovind on this subject.
Oh, yeah. Uh, like I said, I could go on. I could have an entire stream about Dr. Loeb. He is a misogynistic douche canoe. Like he sucks. He is a horrible fucking human being.
Now, now, if
Um,
if if I have his resume correct, doesn't he publish like 2 to 5 papers a week that are only like 5 pages long?
he is prolific, and yes, I don't know about scientific papers, but as I mentioned earlier, this paper that has gotten a lot of hay, people have attributed it to Loeb, but he didn't actually write it. A guy by the name of, what is it, Adam? Whoops, wrong one. I think it's Adam Hibbard wrote the thing. Yeah, Adam Hibbard wrote the thing, and you'll find this in academia quite often. Is if you are someone who is starting out, if you're an early career scientist, and you have something that you want to grab everyone's attention, you tack on a established scientist as the last author, because that gives it gravitas. People are going to look at the author list and be like, "Oh, Loeb's on this. I should pay attention to it."
And
But
Loeb has credential,
yeah,
even if no longer credibility.
exactly. So, um, how much Loeb actually contributed to this paper, I don't know. I would
Yeah, yeah,
suspect not
yeah.
much.
The
The thing
idea of
that
the idea of those ghost authors on a paper showing up. It's like even in a movie where you get down and down, and then there's one actress that's got the and. Yeah, barely a walk on, barely a cameo.
Yeah.
But the thing with Loeb too, though, that is so much more infuriating than Hovind, I think, that I mean, Hovind has always been a shameless grifter, insofar as I know. And I mean, there's a
Mm,
variety of those, like, the people that were always kooks. I mean, they maybe had a degree from Yale or university, or if they had a degree, they got it once and they never did any serious work. I think what annoys me so much about Loeb, and I was watching Professor Dave's video on him recently, and I don't always necessarily like Professor Dave's style, but I think he gave it to him fairly. Like his attack on him was fair. Is that he knows better. He's a serious researcher. Like he has to know exactly what he's doing, right? And it's sad to see, because you see someone that has done. I mean, obviously personally, he's not a great person, but to see
mm.
someone with that level of professional credentials stoop to this sort of behavior is just very, to me, it's disconcerting, because
Yeah,
it's yeah.
there wasn't a very good comparison to Ken Hovind. Ken Hovind has no credential. Yeah, Ken Hovind
Yeah.
just says stupid shit. Now this A.V. Loeb, I only know him from his stupid shit. So they kind of look the same. What? It wasn't he the one who said he found little gold nodules on the seafloor and said, "Look,
Yeah,
this is where the asteroid impacted." Although he was like miles and miles away, and it was completely generic mineralogy of seafloor.
well, and then not only that, but he didn't get the permits to remove them from the sovereign territory of, I forget whether Fiji or what nation he was in. And so he broke international law in that expedition, which does real harm to the credibility of international expeditions, because when people abuse the system like that, it can lead to this sort of like public good of international research being harmed.
And so it kind of gets back to like a Ken Hovind mindset. In other words, he found
Totally.
these little gold nodules hundreds of miles away from where the trajectory indicated impact would be. Is kind of like, well, they found some sort of little rust marks, around. Oh, that's the perimeter of Noah's Ark.
Yeah. Again, it's you start with a worldview, you then cherry pick or um, twist the data to fit that narrative, even if it, on the face of it, doesn't support what you're having to say. So, yes, in that sense, Avi Loeb and Ken Hovind are two birds of the same feather. And the thing is, with Loeb, it's, you know, so again, you could get into this debate as to whether or not Avi Loeb is a grifter, because I've had this discussion about flat earthers. For me, my definition of a grifter is someone who knows what they are selling is bullshit, and they're selling it anyway because they're motivated by money. Now, Avi Loeb, I think, is in some way motivated by money. I was at Barnes and Noble today, and I saw two of his books, extra or Interstellar and uh, Extraterrestrial, I think is the other one. He's in it to make money. He publishes books and he goes on the news in order to highlight his books and to make the sale. The reason why I wouldn't exactly call him a grifter is that I think that Avi Loeb believes what he is selling. Um, I have made this analysis, or I've said this before in certain circles, is that when you look at academia and at professors, there there always seems to be that one professor that when they get older, when they basically retire with a small r, meaning that they don't do anything productive in the department anymore, they become kookified. They just go to this strange
Yeah.
place and say, haha, I have now disproved cosmology. And they start sending kook papers to everywhere. I think that's what Loeb is. I think that's what's happening with Loeb is that he is becoming a quack
Yeah,
because reasons.
isn't there a professor at the University of Montana that became like a Bigfoot researcher or something in the similar when he was emeritus or something? It was like it is a known thing. It's just yeah, that's an odd phenomenon. I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking to Franco about that. Franco works at CERN, and
Mhm.
he was saying that because he reads these papers that the flat earthers will link or whatever, and he's like, I see these all the time because anyone that works in a research institution will get these like random crackpot emails from people.
Yep. Yep.
And we've seen this, like, maybe it's not really all that parallel, but like, take Newton. Fantastic physics, math, science, all that good shit. But he was also an alchemist. Now,
hmm
maybe alchemy back in the day wasn't that weird, but if you bring that forward, it goes, oh, fantastic physicist is into alchemy. Yeah, cuckoo, cuckoo.
Yeah, and so one of my more recent, I don't know, I'm debating as to whether or not I want to make him my arch nemesis. Is that there's this guy, Dr. Stephen Young, and he got his PhD from Exeter, if I remember correctly, in theoretical physics, particularly in atomic physics. He is a grifter. Or he has something is seriously wrong with him because he is now a full-on flat earther. He believes in alchemy. Chemistry is basically a byproduct of alchemy, the truer science. Atoms don't exist. Nuclear weapons do not exist. They're basically just
Oh,
really large napalm bombs.
yeah.
Um, it's and this is a guy who has a PhD. He's not stupid.
You're
So,
talking about Stephen A. Young, right?
yep, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think he's a grifter in that he's got to know his books and his perspectives are bullshit, and he's just whatever reason he needs to make more money, and so has gone down this route. So,
Well, and in his case, and I think this is kind of where the flat Earth can kind of attract some people as well, because there was that professor out of Brazil who was also kind of like I think he failed at tenure and then he started making flat Earth videos, and he's obviously lying, right? Because any professor of geophysics knows that this stuff is bullshit. And the other thing too is they never give actual new compelling arguments based on their expertise. They always just repeat the standard arguments that we know no technical person is ever going to be convinced by. And I think the reason they do that is because the goal is to be relatable to and give legitimacy to the people that they're trying to get in with. And I think in the case of Dr. Young, he seems to have gone into this sort of like ayahuasca retreat
hmm
bogus spirituality thing where he's like participating in retreats and he gets to DJ, but he also gets to be this like guru, you know?
yep,
And I think that's a
yeah.
little different than what Avi's doing, but it kind of almost feels like a similar phenomena. I don't know.
I
Well,
don't
I
know.
think what you describe is called audience shopping. But then I just had this
hmm
flash of Dr. Feynman playing bongos in a beat hangout.
Um, Definitely not quite the same way, but I fully agree with you in that yes, Young is audience shopping, and this is why I think he's a grifter, is because he is trying to find a place that can make him the most money. I think, in a way, Witsit is in a very similar point of view. If I were to advise Witsit on his next steps financially, is that he needs to leave flat Earth and go full alt right. He needs to abandon the whole flat Earth thing and then move towards other alt right sorts of topics. With Avi Loeb, though, like I said, I think that he believes himself to be a messiah in the sense that the thing that broke me with him was he was on a Zoom call. So this is obviously during COVID. He was on a Zoom call with a number of people, but most notably, he was on there with Jill Tarter. Jill Tarter is basically the person that Sagan wrote the part in Contact for. So Jodie Foster's character is based on Jill Tarter. Jill Tarter is basically the mother of SETI. For a very long time, she was SETI. And in that Zoom call, Avi Loeb was talking about how um, extraterrestrial science is poorly underfunded. He doesn't understand why there's never been a huge push for this funding. He's basically mansplaining SETI to Jill Tarter. And it's like, do you have a messiah complex? Is this what you're is this why you're doing this? Is because you want to come in and basically say, "Oh, all right, you guys haven't figured out the whole alien thing, but I'm going to, and I am going to get you the funding in order to actually, find
Yeah.
ET or talk to it." So,
Yeah. So,
um,
uh, actually, that was the part that made me, I guess, the most mad in this paper was when they said that it would explain the singular lack of success of SETI, of the SETI initiative to date.
yep, like I said, he's a misogynist douche canoe because he has to know who runs SETI. He has to know who's in charge of it. And so this idea that he is the one who's going to come in and save the organization and research is ridiculous. It's white savior complex in a way. Will Duffy kind of shit, in my opinion. Um, and where was I going to go with that? Oh, completely lost where I was going to go with that. Um, yeah, I don't know. Um, oh, that's right. I am going to make a video about this because there's a there is a paper that Loeb is also, I think, third author on. This is in a psychological journal. I cannot remember what the first author's name is, but in it, I've only skimmed the first part of it. I really need to do a deep dive on it. It's like 17, 18 pages long. Um, and the premise of it is that the reason why extraterrestrial science has been so woefully underfunded, but exoplanet science has been extremely well funded in their estimation, is because people have an adverse reaction when you tell them that aliens exist. And my response to this is exoplanet science is extraterrestrial science
Yeah.
because aliens have to come from somewhere. So if we can understand where the planets are that they come from, maybe we can start making some more informed guesses as to how likely it is that they're actually coming here. So
Well, I mean,
it that
you'd also have to determine, just based on the equation that we already have, the Drake equation, how rare our form of life would be. And also, you'd have to define what you consider to be life. If we find with the Europa Clipper, if we find, little microbes on Europa, that's life. I mean, it's
mhm,
not his form of life, I guess, but
no.
it's something.
Yeah, the so when people, and I mentioned this before, is when people ask me, Rob, do you believe in aliens? My response is, do I believe that there is some form of life out there in the galaxy? Absolutely. Do I believe that there is some form of extraterrestrial life within our solar system? I would go with probably. Um, are there intelligent species? That's when I start getting pessimistic. And I was saying before that I believe that there were intelligent spacefaring civilizations, or at least allow for the possibility of such, at some point earlier in galactic history, but not now. Um,
and not nearby.
and
Yeah.
yeah, not nearby, and not nearby.
I I think as far as the alien life, yeah, it's out there. We know it. That's I believe a given. But let's look at the life. I can only compare it to like life on Earth. So you look at the intelligence distribution curve. What's the bulk of the life on Earth? It's in the top 3 feet of soil.
mhm.
And then what's the next tier up? Ocean life. And what's the next tier up? Plant life. And what's the next tier up? It's like insects. And people, we're and humans or even any of the mammalian or the chordites. Yeah, we're some tiny little spike. When you look at life on Earth, the chordites and mammalians, they're some tiny little spike. We are not the average. We are not even the mainstream. If you got rid of all the mammals on Earth, Earth wouldn't care.
Yeah.
So I think that's a model for the distribution of life throughout the planets. You could find 1 million planets with life, and maybe one of them will have a multicellular species.
Yeah, I mean, that at least is based in some kind of physical framework. Again, it does assume that the biological processes that happen here happen everywhere, but then again, there's no reason to expect that it wouldn't. But yeah, exactly. That's why I believe that's why I hold to the idea that is there life in somewhere in the galaxy? Absolutely. Is there life within the solar system? Probably. Again, what I'm talking about, and as you mentioned, we're talking about single cell or bacteria.
Just a
Like,
replicating molecule would work.
yeah, exactly. Oh God, that reminds me of Taylor. But anyway, um, so yeah, I think that there are very, very simple life forms a lot of places. Or I would not be surprised if we find very simple life everywhere.
and
I would
and
actually go so far as to say I wouldn't be surprised to find life in interstellar gas, like interstellar dust, like living on specks of dust. I would not be surprised if we ever found that.
so if I kind of hypothesize some sort of distribution curve of advanced life, something like us with the chordites and mammals, right, as being a tiny little spike in the middle, right? Even if you take that across the galaxies or whatever distribution you want, then how far up that spike do you have to get, you know, to get from like horses and dogs to the brains of like dolphins and humans and apes. So
Mhm.
now we got back to the Drake equation. We're just chopping it even a little finer and finer slices. So now if you find 10 million pockets of life, how many dozens have brains? And
Yeah.
then what's the physical distribution? The distances are too far, and they also have to be in a timeline that's concurrent. So if they're like 1,000 light years away, there's no way you can communicate. It's not like you can send a message, hello, and get a response. That's going to
Mhm.
take 2,000 years.
Well, again, somebody like Loeb might argue that they're aliens. If they're a sufficiently high a level of technology, they have circumvented relativity in some way, and so they have faster light travel.
And that's kind of what I was alluding to is if on that spike you could put our level of advancement, how much room is there for better? Yeah, there's going to be better,
Yeah,
but that's going to be an even smaller percentage.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a scale for that. But oh, sorry, Kat, you were going to say something?
Well, no, I was just agreeing. And I mean, several of the things you just mentioned are part of the Fermi paradox. I mean,
Hmm.
space is too vast. So, not only are the distance for, mass to travel too great, but also signals would just take too long. And and then the life is rare, or at least advanced life is rare.
Hmm.
And then there's like the main point of they use tech to spy is that regardless of how technologically advanced a civilization becomes, space exploration is still too long and too fraught on any type of. I mean, we know nothing that has, or at least in of our current understanding, nothing that has mass can travel, and even close to the speed of light
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
fast
we
as you'd
make that
have to
assumption.
travel.
Yeah, we make the assumption about the speed of light thing, but even still, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of years for biology. Yeah, there's no proximity that kind of allows it. And what would cause them to pick Earth? our radio horizon is only out there 100, 100 light years.
Well, it could be. I mean, essentially, that's what we're doing now, is that we are attempting to identify planets with biosignatures. So it would presumably, they would look at our planet and be like, there is life there. Is there intelligent life? I don't know of a way that they could figure that out, but we are developing, as I mentioned before, I was talking about this guy named Adam Frank, and he is developing techniques to see if he can identify the technological sophistication of a world based on how much radio transmission there is, or other factors like that. So,
Oh,
but yes,
well,
that is a factor in the sense of
well,
that is the lifespan.
where we observed some of these exoplanets and beginning to dissect their atmospheres, how far away are they? I mean, are they like 1,000 light years away?
No, no, we're talking hundreds of light years.
Well, I mean,
So
TRAPPIST is one.
it's what, 80?
Oh,
How far away is Trappist? I thought Trappist was like 80 light years.
yeah. No, I
Um,
meant it's one of them that we're looking at.
oh yeah, yes.
Yeah, which I mean,
Oh,
that's just a whole other issue because
No, I was just saying, if we're studying an
oh
atmosphere, we might be studying, an antique or archaeological
yeah,
atmosphere that no longer exists.
yeah. Oh,
well,
sorry, Trappist is 40 light years away. But yeah,
yeah, yeah, 40. So with, well, I mean, we can just use TRAPPIST as an example. Um, we have observed the, I think it's D, planet D, I believe, that
hmm
has gained atmosphere, and then it gets stripped away, and it's a cycle. It gets an atmosphere, then strips away,
interesting.
and
Okay.
I mean, it's because of its home stars, red dwarfs. You have to get so close, and then you know they you get a lot more radiation that way.
I'm just
So it
wondering
just
what is the mechanism to supply the atmosphere? I can see that the TRAPPIST one, the star is highly active, and
yeah.
so during high periods of activity, it's the planet's going to be highly irradiated. It's going to strip the atmosphere. I'm just wondering what is the mechanism that's resupplying that atmosphere.
Well, honestly, I don't know. It has to be something. I would assume, based on my current knowledge, which could be wrong. But I would assume that it has to be coming from underneath the soil.
Yeah, it'd have
I
to be
mean,
some kind of outgassing volcanism.
yeah, for sure. Because I mean, uh, I may have shared the videos that I watched in here, or no, I know for a fact I shared them on my channel when I did my Earth episode. Um, so Earth has, we know when it like became the water planet, but um I don't know, like according to some of the most recent data that we've um gotten, in the past half a decade or so, um they're starting to believe that we had the mechanisms to have water a lot earlier than they had assumed.
I heard something about that. Yeah. Um, I haven't looked too much into it, but I have heard, saw a headline rather, that there is some evidence to suggest that water existed on the Earth prior to previous estimates, which would be weird because we currently don't have a great understanding of how water in that amount got to the Earth to begin with. Um, there are problems with the comet hypothesis based on hard water ratios. They don't seem to match up. But um, yeah, ultimately, as Shuba was pointing out, it goes to the Drake equation. And the last piece of the Drake equation, depending on how you formulate it, the last piece of the equation is the time scale of communication. How long does that civilization last insofar as it can be communicated with? So that's where the pessimism comes in. Is if the civilization destroys itself too quickly, then that number is going to be very small, or is going to be, well, it's going to be small. I shouldn't say very. And so the overall number of intelligent species that we can communicate with is going to be small. But this goes again back to the fact that what Loeb doesn't seem to understand is that exoplanet science is extraterrestrial science because, as you stated, the Drake equation, and this has been the goal since the beginning, is you chip at each of the parameters basically in turn. Is that we have a very good idea of how many stars form every year. We now have a very good estimate, or we believe we have a very good estimate, as to the number of planets around star, or the likelihood of planets around a star. Basically, that's 100%. If you have a star, um, we do not expect a star to not have planets at this point. Maybe some of the O stars, who knows? And so the next one down is the number of exoplanets that can support life. That question is that we're still trying to work out. The habitable zone is too kludgy of a guidepost to go by, but we have nowhere else to go. But my point I'm trying to make is current exoplanet science is looking at these variables and they're trying to answer them one piece at a time. Whereas Loeb wants to just basically cheat or jump to the head of the line and say he found extraterrestrial, spacecraft, which is irresponsible.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the one of the other things is that, we are a level 0 society when it comes to, I think I wrote his name down wrong. I don't remember, but is it Kardashev or Kurdashev?
One of the two, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so we're level 0, but like, if so, we know our neighbors, and we know our neighbors most likely don't have those capabilities either. So,
correct.
from the distances that this society would have to come, again, if it's just tech sent to spy, I guess it doesn't really matter how fast it's going. You're going to want it to go as fast as it can if you want it to succeed in your lifetime. But, that's not even possible, I think, for,
Yeah, it
these types of distances. But when, what level of society would you have to even get to that point?
I would
I
say
think we're at the head of the class. I think there's, of any advanced species out there, it'd be a rare dog to come up with something with more ability than our current status. Just by the statistic of the bell curve.
I mean, there could be another Earth on the opposite side of the galaxy, the opposite side of the galactic center, and we would have no way of finding it,
Yeah.
because there's just too much crap in the way. So, are we at the top of the curve? I don't know. Maybe I would. That's kind
Well,
of, as
nearly,
I said
in
earlier.
proximity to where there's not a lot of headroom above it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I said earlier that that's kind of where I sit now, is that I think that we are either the top of the curve or we are one of the tops of the curve. That there is no civilization out there in the galaxy that is significantly more technologically advanced than we are.
oh, then you get
Um,
that Dyson sphere talk, and well, there was no point in even describing a Dyson sphere.
well, that's what Kat was just talking about, and I can you did a much better job at pronouncing that guy's name than I have ever done. Dyson Sphere, I think, is level
3.
three. Three,
Or
yeah.
no, actually, sorry, it's level 2.
Two, yeah. Okay, level two. And so, again, I mentioned before is with Frank is that they are looking at what are the observational signatures of a Dyson sphere. What sort of things should we expect to see? And the main one, and this is what basically ruled out the alien megastructure around Boyajian star is a Dyson sphere is expected to have a tremendous amount of infrared excess, um, and which should be seen and should be noticeable as not astrophysical. Like the sun, for example, puts out light at a very predictable, range of wavelengths. If we saw a star and we saw a star that looked exactly like the sun, but for whatever reason there was a lot more infrared access there, and we can then rule out any kind of protoplanetary dust, then you start getting somewhere. And so we are getting to the point that we are thinking about this. How do we actually, how, what is the, what would constitute solid evidence for a Dyson sphere, observationally speaking? Um, I don't know if that's been, again, that's a process that's in its very, very early stages, but it is getting funded.
So,
And I just didn't know it. Even the description seemed to be like a waste of free bandwidth to talk about it.
I mean, this, I think that, we're getting to the point with the sophistication of our technology that I think it is worth the exercise of going through and doing these sorts of, and working these sorts of problems is, okay, let's figure out from a scientific standpoint, what are the observational signatures that would be present for a technologically advanced civilization? And then start planning our observations or start planning observational campaigns around them, because that's the main problem that SETI has so up to date. To no fault of their own, is that SETI had no idea where to look, so it had to look everywhere. But now we know where exoplanets are. And so SETI, from my understanding, is actually targeting these systems to see if there are uh, any kind of signatures for it. And hell, the astronomical community is already on top of that in terms of trying to figure out biosignatures. So
And so James Webb is looking for like plankton farts, and SETI's looking for microwave radio
yeah,
communications. It's like two different kinds of looking. It's like, is there any way that there's like algae, and then it's like, is there any way that they can have public broadcasting on WNPR?
I mean, I think they are coming about it from basically two ends of the spectrum. Like uh, people like Frank are looking for ways to find advanced civilizations, whereas mainstream, if you want to call it that, astronomy is looking for basic life, basic signatures of life. And I think as both research programs gain traction, as they mature, they're going to meet somewhere in the middle, where uh, Frank will come up with something where he's like, oh, which is achievable, which is like, all right, we've figured out from a pretty solid basis that inhabited planets just with life would have these types of signatures that we could look for aside from biosignatures. So I don't know, but that's speculation.
so one of the so here's with Dyson spheres. Um, the way that you can correct me, Dr.
Mhm.
Parks, but the way that I was always told about it was that in the signature of finding a Dyson sphere would be um, you have heavy infrared output, but you don't actually see a visible star.
Yes. So when I was with Voyage and Star, the idea was, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I actually know Tabby, who it's named after. That light curve, basically the brightness of that object over time, is very weird in the sense that the obscuration, basically the dimming events in the light curve, are sporadic. There does not seem to be any sort of periodicity to them, and they are extreme. We're talking about 20% drops in luminosity over the span of hours. there is no, as far as we can tell, at this point, we don't have a good astrophysical reason for why that would be, why a star would do that. And so the idea was, all right, this is a Dyson sphere in construction. And
Yeah.
so the idea is you see, girders or whatever, massive girders coming into and out of view. But yeah, a completed Dyson sphere, then you would expect to see basically it would look like an infrared source with pretty much no emission in anything invisible or beyond. Might have radio, probably would have radio emission. Um, but there again, if that's the case, then we run into a technology issue. Is I don't think we have Webb might be able to do it, but outside of Webb, I don't think we've had the sensitivity to actually pick those up because those would be very, very low luminosity if I had to make a guess. So, so it could be, yeah, there could be Dyson sphere all over the place, but we won't know until we have a technology to effectively rule them out. I would imagine that's also what's going on in that field of one of the ways that we need to put in, or we need to come up with some estimate as to what is the brightness, what is the magnitude limit at which we can say that Dyson spheres are not a possibility. Um, is it that we can scan the entire sky and we don't find these sources down to 17th magnitude, 20th magnitude, so forth and so on. So we need to have some kind of idea of how bright these things should be if we're going to have any chance of ruling them in or out.
Yeah, I actually remember my ability to tell time recently has just not been great. But it was either a couple months ago or like a year ago. Honestly, I don't even remember. But in the like mainstream news, I mean, everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows how the mainstream news is when it comes to science stuff. But
Yeah.
they were talking about these, infrared signatures that were found without any stars. And so Neil, they always like to turn to him when it comes to
Oh,
mainstream
yeah.
stuff. And he basically just said like this is what a Dyson sphere is, but do I think that's what this is? No. And then just kind of like shut it down. And I mean that's fine because the amount of explaining that you'd have to do in order to truly have somebody understand is pretty great. And I guess that
Yeah.
kind of goes back to what Mordwan was saying earlier, you know, exploiting, there's the people like Burns, this Burns guy, who just are trying to exploit people who don't understand what
Yep.
this measurement is or what this data set is to push their view.
And it also could be, and again, this goes back to the, whether or not someone is a drift or a grifter or not. It could be that Burns himself doesn't understand what close means. He just looks at the simulation and says, "Oh, it's close." Because one of the other things that just reminded me of Raj from Mud Fossil is that he started off by saying that um, the planetary alignment is significant. Basically, if you look at it again from the scale of this simulation, then you can draw a line from Earth to Venus. I think it's Venus, yeah. Earth to Venus, and then draw a line from Earth to Mercury through Mercury to Mars. So that's apparently those three planets are in alignment, and that the angles, so Venus is on one side of the sun, Mercury and Mars are on the other, and the angle away from each other is basically identical.
Yeah.
So he's saying that this is a precise geometric figure. I'm like, really? How
Yeah.
precise is this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a.
He said that
Go ahead.
Mercury, Mars, Venus, and 3i Atlas made a square as well. And when you
Yeah,
when you have several points on on any type of diagram, and 3 of them are set in a very specific orbit, and then you throw in a third thing, you can put it anywhere and it would make some type of shape.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, I, it's peculiar. Again, it's peculiar. Would I say that it's unlikely? No. Would that instantly tell me, oh, there's a galactic consciousness that's coming through our solar system? No. Uh, that I would not jump to that conclusion. Um, oh, and so I can't stay very much longer, but I do want to point out something else about the Burns video that also kind of bugged the hell out of me, which is goes directly towards cherry picking. Is that so? We've had 3 interstellar objects. Oumuamua, if he is presenting accurate data, which I think he is, then when it passed by the sun went through in a extraordinary active phase. So
Yeah.
there were a couple of really massive flares that happened to be at that point to coincide with Oumuamua's closest approach. Yeah, again, that's peculiar. And he makes some kind of statement like you could say that that's a one-off, but it's solid evidence supporting the idea that Oumuamua's uh, appearance or Oumuamua's position actually had some kind of impact on the sun. I was like, no, that's you can't have it both ways. I think it strongly is a one-off, and I do not see of any physical mechanism via which a comet that's the size of kilometers is going to have any kind of magnetic effect on the sun. So I was like, this is some bullshit. And then he goes off and basically says that because Atlas is in the same plane, is in the ecliptic, it's going to spend longer around the sun, and so we should expect to see massive, uh, massive amounts of stellar activity. But when you look at the Oumuamua one, yeah, there's a spike in X-ray emission during that point. But if you look at the conglomerate, because he shows like I don't know a couple 3 decades of data, that spike isn't out of the ordinary when you look at the ensemble. It's just that he chose it because it happened to be when Oumuamua showed up. Borisov, no solar activity. So
Yeah.
it's like, all right, one of them showed solar activity, but the other one didn't. 50-50. So how you can make any kind of claim as to a definitive connection between the two is irresponsible. There's no way you can do it.
Yeah, I definitely when I was watching the video, I was trying to like listen and think at the same time, which doesn't really work. But I was just like, okay, this guy is presenting himself as, a man, a somebody who
A man of
has,
science.
yeah, a man of science. And I was like, okay, the solar flare thing, like Oumuamua could have been different because it was, not a comet.
Hmm.
It could, I don't know, this cone thing that he showed from the sun, this magnetic field, and yeah,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't know. Um, it did come, closer than, closer than
Yeah.
Borisov did, I believe,
Hmm.
and then, obviously closer than what, 3i Atlas will be
Atlas.
now.
Yeah.
But it's also a totally different body. Like comets, as we know, are icy objects.
Yeah.
One of the things I think the most realistic thing for Oumuamua that I have heard to date was that it most likely came from a developing system, and in that natural destruction phase like we had in our in our early solar system sent it on a very fast trajectory
Mhm.
and happened to coincide with us at some point. And the sun's gravity just kind of pulled it in and flung it somewhere else.
Yep. So, yeah, a couple of things on this. This is yet again a misconception of scale. The notion, because he is outright stating that because Oumuamua was there, solar activity was enhanced. The sun is unimaginably massive. The magnetic dynamo that creates the magnetic field is highly complex. So the notion that something that's on the size of a few kilometers would have any kind of impact to the sun is ludicrous. Like, how is that even possible? You're talking about something that is, what? Let's see. I think it's 9 orders of magnitude. Was it six? Yeah, 9 orders of magnitude greater than the Earth in mass. Think about how much more massive the Earth is to that comet. So you're
Yeah.
talking about tens of orders of magnitude bigger in mass between the sun and the comet. And you're telling me the comet has any, like, the sun notices this thing at all? I just, it drove it, like, this is not possible. I try to keep an open mind on things, but, like, you got to give me more than a coincidental sort of thing. You've got to put forward some kind of mechanism to explain why something that tiny would affect something that massive. And he kind of did when he started talking about plasma. And he started using that as a woo word. And that, ooh, plasma. Like, it's just ionized gas, dude. I don't know what you want. I mean, he's right in that basically the solar radiation is going to ionize the gas that is sublimated off of the comet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you get the ion tail of the comet. Okay, great. I think he was trying to imply that the plasma field of the comet interacts with the plasma field of the sun, and that would. I'm like, no. Again,
Yeah.
scale matters. Scale matters. This thing is insignificant to the sun. So, but the other thing I want to say before I have to leave is there's something very vital being missed. And you basically alluded to it, is that what's really exciting about these things isn't that they're alien spacecraft, or isn't even the possibility that they're alien spacecraft, is that they are most likely remnants of either created stellar systems or planetary systems or evolved planetary systems. Basically, if we can get a notion or get a handle on what these things are made of, we now have a tangible piece of evidence. As you know, again, it's a single data point, but we have a tangible piece of evidence that can go into protoplanetary creation models to figure out how stellar systems or planetary systems come into effect. This is amazing. Like, particularly if this is a common event, then I would say we need to start funding more missions like Atlas. We need to be looking at these interstellar interlopers because we need to catch them much earlier, and so that we can have dedicated programs to study them. Because again, this is unprecedented views of the building blocks of stellar systems or planetary systems. And I have heard no one talk about that. And to me, that is absolutely fascinating. That
So, what would
so
be, hypothetically, if you could get a sample from one of these comments, what would be the significance of that discovery?
so one of the things that I'm just now looking into, which I actually kind of agree with Loeb on, is that there's been a paper proposed that has suggested that the comet is made up of 30% water and then 70% some element I was not familiar with, or something that I was not familiar with, some kind of, I guess, solid of some sort. And so, what that goes to, and this is, again, because of the crude nature of the observations and the analysis, it's a crude estimate, but this goes into, all right, if this thing is made up of 30% water and, say, 70% tungsten, then that is something that has to be accounted for in any model of the creation of a planetary system. Is that somewhere in that system has to be an environment such that something can exist as 30% water and 70% tungsten. Um, so it gives us basically boundary conditions. It gives us constraints to the models that we develop further on.
Now, you point out how few of these we've encountered, or have any observation of. 3.
Yeah.
Will Vera Rubin telescope suddenly come up with a shower of these things?
I doubt it. So Vera Rubin is scheduled to scan basically the northern celestial hemisphere, the entire northern celestial hemisphere once every 3 days. So we are going to have unprecedented
I thought it was
time
Southern
series.
Hemisphere. I thought it was Southern Hemisphere. It's in
Oh,
Chile, right?
sorry. Yeah, that's right. Southern hemisphere. It's in. Yeah, you're right. It's in the Andes. Southern hemisphere every 3 days, which kind of sucks actually because um, if you look at the distribution of stars, we are slightly we are in the lower section of the disk, meaning there is actually more stuff above us than below us. But anyway, that's a nitpicky tangent. So we're going to have an unprecedented amount of data to work with, time series data. We're going to be able to see the night sky evolve with time. I haven't looked
So again,
into
and I was just thinking we could spot something that's moving rapidly and only going to be visible for a short period of time.
yeah. So the two things that I think are vital here are um, while cadence is the number, basically how many times you observe something in a span of time. So once a day, once an hour, that sort of thing. Um, I don't know what kind of cadence is necessary to be able to best pick out these interstellar interlopers. The other thing is that we need to consider is I don't know what the faintness limit of Vera Rubin is. Um, I would imagine it would be. I would imagine that it would be its faintness limit. It would be able to detect these things fairly
I
readily.
think it's magnitude 24 or 27.
Oh well, shit. Then yeah. So yeah, probably yeah. And given that kind of limiting magnitude, then yeah, I think that I wouldn't. Again, I would not be surprised at all if Rubin starts finding a whole bunch of these interstellar interlopers because as was pointed out in the Burns video, there's still an open question. We have found 3 of these within the last 2 decades. Um, Again, you could argue that's a lot. 3 objects in 2 decades, from an astronomical standpoint, that's actually a pretty good frequency. On the other hand, it's not. And on the other hand is this a one-off? Is this a period where we got 3 and then we're going to have a period of 50 years where we get nothing? Or are these interstellar objects streaming through at regular intervals and we're just missing them? There are so many open questions about these objects that these sorts of statements or conclusions that people are making, again, is just irresponsible. We don't have the data to support any kind of conclusion.
Yeah, I think the frequency of an interstellar comet passing through the solar system is much higher than the frequency of discovery of those comets.
Oh yeah,
For
Probably,
sure.
yeah.
So that's why I was thinking Vera Rubin, which I just checked, does have a magnitude around 25 to 28. And yeah, and with such a rapid time lapse, and they have all this automated scanning, to detect faint things that are moving, and then you immediately get a speed or some sort of velocity, on it.
Yeah.
I would think that there might be a shower by compared to 3 in 10 or 20 years or whatever it was.
So,
Yeah, we don't know.
I
We yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Morgan, go ahead.
oh no, you're good. This thing will kind of drive it home, and I do have to run after that. But I just wanted to ask in the spirit of showing how we ought to do things, what would be required, and maybe we could I could pose it to whoever feels comfortable answering. What would be required for you to conclude that an object was likely to be an alien probe? Because clearly, I think it's abundantly clear that we're not even remotely close to any reasonable standard of evidence to make that conclusion currently. What would you want to see in order for you to feel comfortable professionally making even like a 1% probability that it could be, let's say?
So that is an excellent question. That is a question that we should be asking as scientists. So for myself, one of the obvious things would be, or one of the obvious things is movement. So one of the main reasons why Loeb was so enamored with Oumuamua being an alien spacecraft is that its trajectory was not Keplerian, meaning that it's um, something moved it. Basically, its trajectory changed. It had a change in velocity that was not gravitationally motivated. We're starting to call these apparently non-gravitational accelerations. Basically, and so Loeb was they're maneuvering thrusters. The reason why it changed its trajectory is because they, for whatever reason, decided to course correct. If what's it? If Atlas does something similar but to a much greater extent, then I would be like, okay, now we need to start looking at this as a viable option. With Oumuamua, while it is unlikely, or at least again, based on the evidence that we have, while we think it's unlikely, there could have been some outgassing. Basically, pockets of Oumuamua sublimated more than others. There was gas underneath that, and that provided this extra gravitational or non-gravitational thrust. We didn't see it. Like from spectroscopic analysis, we didn't see this gas. However, the observations were limited, and I don't know what the signal to noise of what this observation, like how easy is it to detect these things. So, what I to answer your question, I would have to see large. I would have to see non-gravitational acceleration that is outside of the possibility of any astrophysical mechanism. I would have to see composition that was outside any astrophysical uh, explanation. Although that would also be that could also point to something in my mind even more interesting, meaning that if this thing is a giant chunk of uranium, say for example, to me I would be like, wait a minute, does that mean that in some planetary systems there are giant chunks of uranium flying around that aren't in our own solar system? But it boils down to it has to have some kind of aspect that cannot be explained by some kind of normal physical mechanism. So the best for me would be the non-gravitational acceleration. If it moved
Gotcha.
oddly and could not be explained, outgassing or what have you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I, s-
super.
I
And
suppose.
we just
I,
have to be careful that it's not a giant chunk of oil floating around, or we've got a intersolar intervention that's going to happen.
I was thinking the fact that their radio is silent may be, evidence against. But then, if it's moving that fast and that far from home, there may be no reason to have radio uh, signature. Who are they going to talk
Um,
to?
Well, you would expect to have some kind of radio just telemetry or, how does it know where it's located? The craft, excuse me, if the craft has the ability to uh, propel itself or change its course, then it's got to know where it's located in the solar system. And the best way to do that is by radar sounding. So it would be radio loud,
I
at
think it
least
would
at
be.
some
Wouldn't that
point.
be primarily? Would that be primarily optical? I mean, why would you send radar pulses at big time delays?
So you can't really determine distance very well optically. You can use parallax, but you'd have to move quite a long way in order for parallax to be observable. And so radar to me would just be more efficient. Would be a faster way of determining distance than any other method that I can think of. So, all right, yeah, I gotta go too. Thanks, Kat. Is there anything else you wanted to talk? But this was awesome.
No, actually, you guys have like perfect timing because I was gonna say like we gotta start wrapping it up. It's been, I mean, adding the stuff that I need to add. This will probably be 2.5 hours. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think we got a pretty good discussion out of it. There's always more that can be said about a lot of different things, and I'd like to make these chats a little more regular.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, just I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I mean, more than one left, but I'd like to thank him for coming too.
All right. Well, then I am going to sign off. So peace out, clear skies, and it was a great time. All right,
Thank
bye.
you. Okay, guys. So, thank you for coming. Thanks, Shubel, for talking and having questions and stuff. Um, and just so everybody else knows, the lady with the curly hair is my mom. She hasn't really said anything, but hi, and thanks for coming.
Hi.
I'll talk to you later about the stuff that you missed, and you know, you'll probably see it earlier on or later on when I post it.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, I'm
thank.
disappointed that I missed, the first maybe hour and a half of that. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty fascinating for in Discord terms.
Yeah, for
Oh
sure. I
yeah.
mean, with especially with the crowds we're used to. Okay, so I'm gonna end the event now, and just I'll probably do more of these. If you guys have any suggestions for topics, just put them in any of these chats, especially if there's a let's see, if there's a channel that you specifically want to talk about, just put it in that channel. But I also take suggestions over just on my YouTube community.
Okay.
Well, there could be a Duffy debate that coming up in a couple days. Watch party.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to see if Mordwand already has a plan for that on his server, but yeah, we could try that.
I just kind of uh I feel like the professor was a little bit closed-minded as far as um when he said that radar would, in his opinion, was the most advanced way for a spacecraft to find its way in the space that it's in, because we don't know what kind of advanced features an advanced civilization would have as far as its spatial awareness in a spaceship.
Yeah, I thought.
Because we're
Yeah,
not there. We're
Yeah,
not
I
there
thought.
yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I thought radar would have been, kind of lowbrow compared to continually when I mentioned optical positioning, and he said it'd have to move a lot. Well, but it would be continuous for the entire, multi-century, travel. So I think,
Exactly.
that would be current, little updates along the way. Radar would, it's like maybe you'd have to. Oh, no, I didn't see that either.
Yeah.
Because the radio silence, I thought would, oh, it's radio silence. Well, then it can't be. But then again, who are they going to talk to?
Well, they would talk to any kind of civilization that would have any kind of radio availability.
Yeah, but what would be the expectation? It's like keep your scanners running, huh?
Yeah. I mean, like any civilization like us that would be always looking to the stars.
But then again, that would be passive unless they were in proximity and wanted to initiate something. But I think it would be passive just to see what it's encountering.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I
I
mean,
give it.
what's the purpose of going to the stars if they're not exploring or trying to conquer? Those are the only two options, you know.
Just remember, it's never aliens.
well,
I
I
don't
mean, the
care what it
thing
is.
is
It's not
that
aliens. It's never aliens.
Yeah.
when it comes to so part of oh crap, I went on the wrong screen. Um, Part of what we were talking about was, or well, I'm pretty sure, Shovel, you hadn't joined yet, and I know for sure you didn't. But one of the things we were talking about was the Fermi paradox, and there's so many components to that for why we haven't been reached out to yet. But I mean, we did
Yeah, it's almost like
discuss several
it's
of
it's
those.
almost like the Fermi paradox is like a derivative of the Dirac equation, or the Drake equation, right? It's like there's a percentage of what's out there, and then you take it to the next level, and what's the likelihood that that we're going to overlap with any of that?
Yeah. And in the paper that Adam, I'm forgetting his last name now, that he wrote and put Loeb's name on
Huh.
was they they brought one of their bases is the dark forest, and so their assumption, or well, I guess their presupposition to this would be that there is life actually everywhere. They're just smart enough to be quiet.
Mm.
But I mean, we both disagreed with that for several reasons, and those
Well,
were
Arecibo sent out that message, and some people were saying that probably isn't a good idea.
well, I mean, you see what happened to Arecibo, but
Well, then Voyager also has a map, stuck to the side on that antique record. It's like, oh look, it's got a map of where we are. It's like, well, is that a good idea?
well, I mean, one of the arguments I don't think I had a chance to bring it up because there was a lot more to discuss than I planned on. But one of the things was that we, with how much life they are assuming from this, the likelihood that we would be the only dumb civilization to broadcast is highly unlikely. As much as I would, again, well, again for me, I'm restating this now, but I've never been a pessimist when it comes to life, but sometimes you just have to take the facts as they are, and I mean, Shubo, we live in a community where people just take something they conclude, and then they try to gather enough information that would confirm their conclusion, and most of the time it just doesn't.
Well, I just feel like if there were aliens that, like, noticed our civilization, I just think that they would just pass us by because we were just too
Young.
primitive for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. She's always in the background. I mean, that's fine. I like hearing her voice too. But yeah, that's another thing that I've always argued is that if alien tech could be sent to spy on us, why would we assume? I mean, it's kind of like a, I don't know, an ego thing, I guess, that we would just assume that we're like good enough for them. Like we've developed enough.
Well, but also if we were like a destination or they homed in on us, why would they pass through so quick?
Yeah.
Right.
You think they would slow down, use their cloaking device, and just watch?
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that I know everybody has their own opinion of Michio, but there's one book of his that there's several books of his that I have, but one of them is what is it called? It's hiding behind one of my other books now and I can't move it. It's about like the physics behind impossible things, so sci-fi things like the ray guns and cloaking devices and things like that. I was the first thing that I read about it was perpetual motion machines. Those are obviously very interesting for different reasons, and he explains why they've never happened, or why they haven't happened here, why we haven't been able to do that. And going back to these other advanced civilizations, there are several points that both Dr. Parks made and myself, that advanced civilizations, if they were anything like us, they probably annihilated themselves pretty early on. Well, early on compared to us. I mean, we're only... Shoot, now I'm blanking. The Earth is only, 4.5 billion years old. There are galaxies much older than ours, and we know this. But, there's... This is one reason why I like the Fermi paradox, because there's so many different reasons for why, we haven't been approached. One being that when it comes to signals and stuff, they take too long, or they're on a different frequency. I mean, we know when we send things out, the wavelength gets longer and longer the farther out it goes. Who's to say that, the farther out it goes, that it would even be able to be picked up? And then, advanced civilizations, if they had... I mean, there is a likelihood that there were other civilizations like ours, and if they were like ours, then they did either go extinct, or kill each other. Mutually assured destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Or that they are so advanced that they just don't really want to deal with us.
Yeah. Or they've noticed our track record from our past
Or they've watched our
and
movies and
didn't
how much
want
we hate aliens, apparently.
to. Yeah. Oh gosh.
I mean, that reminds me of that movie when River Phoenix was young, like, I don't know, maybe middle school age, called Explorers. That's
Mm.
one of my favorite movies. He him and his friend or two friends make this like spaceship, and it's not really a spaceship, but they were contacted, and then they made this thing, and they went up and they saw these people, or not people, these aliens that look like, I don't even know, like a bumpy version of, who's the purple McDonald's guy? Is that
Oh,
Grimace?
Grimace, yes.
Yeah, Grimace. It's like a lumpy version of Grimace, and either River or the guy that plays his friend asked, why haven't you made contact? And they turned on their TV and saw all of our alien movies and said, well, because anytime any other species comes, you kill them.
Yeah.
And there was those very good, I think, rather progressive sci-fi movies in the 50s where alien craft lands and they say, "We're here to protect you because you're going to destroy yourself. So if you're going to fuck up the planet, we're going to take you out." Or The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh yeah, that.
Ah, yes.
Oh man.
Earth is more important than the people who live on it. If you're going to mess it up, we're going to take you out.
Yeah. Well, I had mentioned that when it comes to like smart civilizations and stuff, um, if any of you haven't seen the new Jurassic now Rebirth, this doesn't really like ruin any part of the movie. It's just a little side thing, but the paleontologist, or I believe he's a paleontologist, um, he said that humans are not actually as smart as we think we are. Um, I mean, we are. He wasn't saying we were dumb. He was just saying that we're not actually as dominant. Actually, not smart. Not as dominant as we think we are, in that we're a smart species, smart enough to already have the method to, destroy ourselves. And I mean, that really, like, to me, I was like, yeah, that, I mean, we do.
Yeah.
But if we were to get past that point and actually grow, um, I don't think that we would want to go. I mean, we wouldn't want to go back there. I think at a certain point, civilizations can't without, without some like catastrophic thing happening, like
Mm.
in that Nicolas Cage movie where the sun just like destroys, however many miles down of the entire Earth, like half the soil's gone. But I don't
Uh-huh.
think. I mean, I don't think anything would be able to survive something like that, especially when the sun eventually does what it does. That's going to be a really long time from now. But one of my one of the points on my thesis for my senior thesis would be, or is that humans do need to, we need to start, expanding if we want the human race to actually survive. It's just the method of how that needs to be answered.
Mhm.
Well, the problem is humans can't live anywhere else. We need
Yeah.
the gravity. We need the microbiome. We need the atmosphere. We need this amount of sunlight. We need this amount of, like the whole idea of being on Mars. Mars wants to kill you. It's a suicide trip to go there and think you're going to stay more than a week. But unfortunately, to go there, you're stuck for multiple years. And what are
Yeah.
you going to do? There's no way you can you can have offspring in the way the physiology of the human animal is. There's no way you could have successful offspring. The skeletal system would be all messed up. Now it's
Mhm.
humans evolved on Earth. There's not much about the environment that can be changed. Like if you go expand onto somewhere else, it has to be 99.99% the same as Earth.
It would. And that's where a lot of other uh, things come into. I mean, that's a whole different, conversation. There's so many things to be said on that topic, and I mean, this is why I like to overwhelm myself, apparently. So this is exactly why I have made that my senior thesis.
And then you hear this, silly chatter about terraforming Mars. I go, good God, why don't we just terraform Earth, you know, and into trying to roll it back to the conditions that we evolved in and clean it up. That's our problem. Is we've just dirtied up the Earth. That's the real problem.
Well, I mean, yeah, we have to. There is I have always been of the mind that we have two things can be true at the same time, right? I mean, yeah, it's not like me writing my paper now is not gonna be like that's not gonna be the thing that happens, you know, 4 billion years from now. But whatever we do now is a good starting point, and you know, the more we advance, the more we're gonna need to um, create the sustainability, or well, fix the sustainability issue is actually how I would put it.
Well, I really need to go, guys, and this was very interesting. Thank you, JeaKat.
Sorry. Yes. Um.
Well,
So
it was entertaining. Entertaining. Come across a couple of new voices. I hadn't heard of your channel before, and the invite got passed around. I touched on it. I thought I was going to Glober Jabber, and so I said, "What's this channel?"
that's why. Is that what you said? Where am I?
Well, yeah, because I assumed I was going to Glober Jabber, and then all of a sudden I say this other thing. I was like, how'd I end up here? Well, yeah, it's in the invitation. Yeah, I figured it out after I typed that a little too fast. I didn't think it through.
That's funny.
Well,
I almost thought I got hijacked. It's like, well, I clicked into Glober Jabber and now I'm here. It's like, somebody moved me.
well,
Uh,
thank you for joining, and
yeah, this was a very good conversation. I enjoyed it.
yeah, me too. Thanks, you guys.
Well, on the other channels, I'm known as the Surveyor because that's my profession.
Oh,
So that's why sometimes sometimes I foolishly interact with some flat earthers, but mostly I try to help the other guys.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you and Jesse are really the only two that I actually have talked to.
All right, well, lights
Okay,
out.
good night, guys. Bye.
Good night, guys. Thank you. Okay, everyone. So I hope that was a good chat for all you guys. And if you'd like to join next time, just go ahead and join my server, and you can chat all you want. This time it was mostly focused around I wanted to get Dr. Parks's, opinions and professional ideas on the topic, but as you can see, all are welcome to talk, all are welcome to question, and really enjoy having multiple people around. I still get to say what I want to say, but also the conversation keeps going. As you can see, this one was a little bit longer, so I hope to make it shorter each other time. If it happens more often, then it probably will happen. Or, I mean, it will be shorter. But again, all are welcome, and I really enjoyed this chat with the ones who did join. So yes, have a good night, and if you are not part of, or if you have not subscribed to Dr. Parks, he is linked in the description. So go ahead and do that. He has, he is an actual professor. He is a PhD, and he is a good source of information. So just go ahead and do that. If you have yet to subscribe to this channel, do that. And if you have yet to join the server, do that as well. Otherwise, good night and keep looking up.